All right, welcome to the 1310 podcast. The goal is always have one guest ask them three questions and get it accomplished in 10 minutes. Today, I am excited to have our basketball coach and teacher, 2007 graduate, Zach Delman. Zach, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, I got three questions for you. We'll dive right in. And one question is share a brief story about some of your mentors here at Union Local, how they helped shape you and really move you toward your career trajectory.
Well, first and foremost, I had a lot of good teachers throughout my time here at Union Local. A couple specifically that stand out. Going back to Belmont before the elementary school was built here, I went to Belmont for kindergarten, first, second, and third. And in third grade, I had a lady by the name of Mrs. Steffel. I believe we were one of her last classes she had.
She was getting ready to retire?
Yes. I think she transitioned from a third grade teacher into a librarian role towards the end of her tenure here. But she was a great teacher, and she kind of fostered my love for mathematics. And she did a thing with multiplication tables, just had like a ladder on the wall, and you would build up the rungs of the ladder.
What grade
the better
is this?
that you get. Third grade.
Third grade.
And
those are pretty vivid memories.
Yeah, I just remember doing multiplication tables and time tests, and she really did like a lot of drill and practice with us and made us really learn those facts really well. And it kind of fostered my love for math, and I found out that math was a passion of mine, and I just thought she helped make me want to be a teacher in some ways. And then as I transitioned on into middle school, one teacher that really remembered the most for me was Mr. Bartles. He was an 8th grade history teacher, and I just liked the way he ran his class. He had some coaching background, but he was more of a I don't know how to describe it. He just had really good command of the room, and he was interesting to listen to. He was fun. You felt comfortable in his room, and he was someone who I really looked up to and thought that I would like to kind of emulate what he was in the room.
Typically, us history teachers were pretty good guys.
Yeah, so he was another one that, and I knew some of his family and some of his grandkids and nieces and nephews came through here, and I actually went on to college and became good friends with his son just by chance. It wasn't, we didn't know each other before that. We were taking classes together, and I found out that was his son, so we became close. But he was a great teacher, and he helped motivate me to want to be a teacher as well. And he's someone who maybe said, hey, this is something you might want to think about when you get to high school or colleges. I could see you being a good teacher. So he helped build that confidence for me, and it was something that I'll be forever grateful for.
So how old were you when you thought about, maybe I want to do this, maybe I want to teach, maybe I want to coach?
Yeah, I think it started in elementary school. It just crossed my mind, but as that age, you're not really thinking about careers that seriously. And then as middle school happened, and that little bug was dropped in your ear, you start thinking about it. And then obviously in high school was when you start more thinking directly about careers and what you want to do. And sports were a big part of my life at that age, and so I always thought, man, I'd really like to coach and be a teacher, especially here at my alma mater. It was really the only thing that I ever thought about from high school on was like career-wise was I'd really like to be a coach, I'd really like to be a teacher, and if I could do it where I was raised, that would be the end goal.
So mission accomplished,
yeah.
Zach. So you shared with us some of the teachers that made an impact for you. As you traveled through each grade, through Union Local High School, what skills did you start to develop that you believed would help you become a coach? What was revealed to you as a student that you knew you could use as a coach and a teacher?
Well, I think a little bit of everything is incorporated in that, when it comes from the teachers that you had, what they instill in you, the rigor of the assignments that you're given. I think, sometimes being pushed and challenged can help you find out a lot about yourself. Mm-hmm. And for me, there were some times in my life where things came easy and I didn't have to work that hard for it. And then there were times in education throughout here and in college where things weren't so easy. And I found out a lot about myself where I had to push a little bit harder, or I had to study, I had to go do things that I wasn't used to doing. Mm-hmm. And through that, there was some failure. I didn't always get perfect grades, and that was a learning curve for me. And, I felt like that helped make me who I wanted to be. And then in return, as a teacher, it helped me kind of carve out the role that I wanted to play as a teacher. Being able to give kids a little extra support if they needed it, if they needed someone to just believe in them or encourage them or motivate them. I felt like I was somebody that I could do that for kids, and sometimes I needed that.
And you work as an intervention specialist, so you work with a lot of kids that would be deemed, need that extra support.
Yeah.
So a lot of times coaches get criticized for that they have a hard time relating to players that don't have their same set of skills. Do you find that's a strength of yours, working with students that are growing towards their skill set as opposed to already being there?
I'm a big believer in every kid's different, and every kid needs something different than X, Y, or Z. You can't teach every kid the exact same way. You can't treat every kid the same. So I feel like that is a strength of mine, where I can kind of see where a kid might be falling behind, or where a kid might need a little bit of a push to get them on the right track. And like I said, there's kids out there that don't always have the super great support. I want to be able to be that for them, give them the motivation they need, give them that support, give them that little extra push. And if we can just make a difference and just push someone to reach for a little bit more.
Sounds like one skill you learned was patience, because you have to have a certain level of patience, because things don't come to every student at the same level of speed. And when you're an intervention specialist, you have to keep that in mind. And if they feel like they're defeated, if they have no self-confidence, how do we move forward? And I think when you're working with high school players, they're not fully formed either. You have some kids that maybe didn't pick up basketball until middle school, some that have been playing their entire life. And that doesn't mean that the one that's been playing their entire life has better skills. The other person just needs a little bit more coaching and time.
Absolutely.
So our last question, Zach, you are the basketball coach. You've done a great job. I think you're number 2 all-time wins?
I believe so.
Moving up there. So people tend to forget the wins and losses, but the players tend to remember, how you made them feel, what skills you were trying to develop. When you see some of your players, and even some of your current players in the future, what do you want them to share with you in 5, 10, 15, 20 years about how their experience playing basketball for you helped shape them as people?
Well, we always talk about, I can count on so many occasions where we're sitting in the locker room before practice. We start every practice with like a 10-minute just talk, whether we're talking about what we got to accomplish that day, what we're looking for in the week ahead, whether we're talking about an opponent, things we're going to focus on in practice, or just talking about life. And I feel like that's where we really hit home. It's just sitting there talking about life. And obviously it's easier for me here in the last few years to talk about that, because now I'm a father of 3. And when I first started coaching here, I was not a father. So it was hard to always make that connection. But now I see things through a different lens because I have kids. And I'm always talking about, what kind of dad are you going to be one day? What kind of husband are you going to be? So that's something we talk about with these guys, and making sure that they're always putting that best foot forward to make themselves better. And circling back to the coaching aspect in basketball in my program, I really try to focus on the little details. I think the little details are things that often get overlooked, or sometimes we feel like as older athletes that we can bypass the fundamentals. And because we learned them at a young age, that we often put them in the back burner and we focus on more complex things.
Sometimes your coaches say, hey, they should have already learned those skills. I'm focused on strategy. But those fundamental skills allow you to be strategic.
Yep, and we're very, very intentional with what we do in practice. I design our practice plans and our things that we do around the fundamentals, the little details, to make sure we don't jump over those, because I feel like the teams that are really good at the little things are the teams that are maybe have average players, that average players do better things, and teams that are more talented that bypass the little details go from being really good on paper to average teams.
Yeah, how you do anything is how you do everything. You can do the small things, right? And I think that's where sports are a microcosm of life. There's a lot of times you don't want to get up and show up at work. If you're a dad, there's times where there's other things you'd rather be doing than maybe changing a diaper. But I think sports are a great litmus test to say, hey, if I can make myself do this, if I can get through this workout, I can get through anything.
Right.
And it's really challenging yourself.
Yep.
Well, Coach Delman, 2007 graduate, Good luck on the basketball season. When is the first game?
December 2nd here at home against Harrison Central.
Won't be long. Thanks for being our guest.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.